The Pueblo Civilization stands as one of the most enduring and culturally rich Native American societies in the southwestern United States. With roots stretching back thousands of years, the Pueblo people have demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability in one of the most challenging environments in North America. Their civilization is characterized by unique architecture, sophisticated agricultural techniques, and deep spiritual traditions, all of which continue to influence their descendants today. Geographically, the Pueblo settlements are primarily concentrated in the arid regions of what is now New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Utah. These areas, with their deserts, mesas, and river valleys, provided the Pueblo people with both opportunities and challenges. The strategic locations of their settlements, often perched on cliffs or nestled in canyons, highlight their ingenuity in adapting to their environment. The Puebloans constructed some of the most impressive ancient dwellings in North America, including the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde and the great houses of Chaco Canyon. In this documentary, we will explore the origins, development, and lasting impact of the Pueblo civilization, tracing its journey from the ancient ancestral Puebloans to the vibrant communities that continue to thrive today. The ancestral Puebloans evolved from early hunter-gatherer groups who initially relied on the abundant game and wild plants in the region. Over time, as they began to establish more permanent settlements, they transitioned from foraging to farming. This shift occurred gradually, with the cultivation of native crops such as squash, beans, and, most notably, maize. The introduction of maize from Mesoamerica around 2000 BCE had a profound impact on their society, as it provided a reliable food source and allowed for larger, more stable communities. The ancestral Puebloans also developed extensive trade networks, exchanging goods such as pottery, textiles, and foodstuffs with neighboring tribes. These interactions not only brought valuable resources but also facilitated the exchange of ideas and technologies, enriching Pueblo culture. Living in the desert landscapes of the Four Corners region, where present-day Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah meet, the Puebloans had to overcome harsh environmental conditions. The region is characterized by extreme temperatures, limited rainfall, and arid soil, making agriculture and survival challenging. However, the Puebloans developed innovative strategies to adapt to their surroundings. They practiced dry farming techniques, utilizing natural irrigation methods such as runoff water from mesa tops and seasonal rains. They also built terraced gardens and employed water conservation methods like building check dams and reservoirs. Additionally, the Puebloans constructed their dwellings from locally available materials like adobe and sandstone, which provided insulation from the intense heat and cold. These architectural innovations, combined with their agricultural adaptations, enabled them to thrive in the desert environment. The shift to agriculture was a transformative moment for the Pueblo civilization. Maize, introduced from Mesoamerica, became the cornerstone of their diet, providing a stable food source that allowed for population growth and the establishment of permanent settlements. Alongside maize, they cultivated beans and squash, a combination known as the Three Sisters, due to the plant's complementary growing patterns and nutritional value. In addition to crops, the Puebloans domesticated turkeys, which provided a reliable source of protein. The feathers from turkeys were also used in clothing and ceremonial items, adding another dimension to their cultural practices. The domestication of animals and the development of agricultural techniques allowed for a more sedentary lifestyle, which in turn led to advancements in architecture, social organization, and craftsmanship. The basket maker period represents the foundational stage of the Pueblo civilization. As the name suggests, this period is characterized by the skillful creation of baskets, which were essential for storing food, carrying goods, and performing various daily tasks. The basket maker people lived a semi-nomadic lifestyle, moving between seasonal camps to hunt, gather, and tend small gardens. During this time, they began experimenting with agriculture, particularly the cultivation of maize. However, they still relied heavily on wild plants and animals for sustenance. The people of the basket maker period lived in simple, shallow pit houses, semi-subterranean structures that provided shelter from the elements. These early dwellings were typically circular or oval in shape, with a hearth at the center for cooking and warmth. The transition from a nomadic to a more settled lifestyle during this period set the stage for the development of larger, more complex communities in the following centuries. The Pueblo I period marks a significant transformation in the social and architectural landscape of the Pueblo Civilization. As populations grew and agricultural techniques improved, the Puebloans began building larger and more permanent settlements. These settlements were characterized by pit houses similar to those of the basketmaker period, but with key innovations such as the construction of multi-room dwellings and above-ground structures. During the Pueblo I period, the use of stone and adobe as building materials became more widespread, leading to the development of multi-story buildings with multiple rooms. These early pueblos, from which the civilization takes its name, were often constructed in strategic locations that allowed for defense and access to natural resources such as water. The architecture of this period reflects the growing complexity of Pueblo society, as families lived in interconnected units, fostering a strong sense of community. The Pueblo I period also saw the introduction of kivas, circular, subterranean ceremonial structures used for religious rituals and community gatherings. Kivas became a central feature of Pueblo villages, representing the spiritual and communal heart of the community. The Pueblo II period marked a time of significant expansion and cultural blossoming. The construction of large multi-room pueblos became widespread, with settlements growing both in size and architectural sophistication. These pueblos, built from adobe, stone, and timber, often contained hundreds of interconnected rooms and could house large communities, reflecting the increasing complexity of Pueblo society. During this period, the Puebloans also expanded their trade networks. Goods such as turquoise, shells, pottery, and textiles were traded over long distances, connecting the Pueblo civilization with other indigenous cultures across the Southwest, Great Plains, and Mesoamerica. These trade routes facilitated the exchange of not only goods but also ideas, technologies, and cultural practices, enriching the Puebloan way of life. Advances in agriculture during this period played a critical role in supporting the growing population. The Puebloans developed sophisticated techniques for dry farming, water conservation, and soil management, which allowed them to cultivate maize, beans, and squash in the arid environment. The stability provided by a reliable food supply enabled the construction of larger, more permanent settlements. One of the most significant developments during the Pueblo II period was the rise of Chaco Canyon, located in present-day New Mexico, as a political, cultural, and religious center. Chaco Canyon became the hub of Puebloan civilization, featuring monumental architecture, including massive great houses, ceremonial kivas, and an extensive network of roads that connected outlying settlements across vast distances. The great houses of Chaco Canyon, such as Pueblo Bonito, were multi-story structures with hundreds of rooms, serving as centers for trade, politics, and religious ceremonies. These buildings, constructed from sandstone and timber, were engineering marvels of their time. The roads radiating from Chaco Canyon connected it to other Pueblo settlements, facilitating communication, trade, and the spread of cultural and religious practices. Chaco Canyon was also a spiritual center, with its kivas, circular, subterranean ceremonial structures, playing a central role in religious and communal life. Religious rituals conducted in the kivas were tied to the Puebloans' relationship with nature, the cosmos, and their ancestors. The Pueblo III period saw the continued urbanization of Puebloan society, with a shift toward the construction of cliff dwellings and the increasing complexity of societal structures. The Puebloans began building their homes in the cliffs of canyons, particularly in Mesa Verde, which provided natural protection from the elements and potential threats. These cliff dwellings, such as Cliff Palace in Mesa Verde, were intricate multi-story structures built into the rock faces of the cliffs. They were constructed from sandstone blocks and mud mortar, showcasing the Puebloans' advanced masonry skills. The location of these dwellings also offered strategic advantages, allowing the Puebloans to monitor the surrounding landscape and control access to their settlements. The Pueblo people are known for their highly developed artistic traditions, which were both functional and symbolic. Pottery was one of the most significant art forms, with intricate designs that often carried religious or cultural meaning. Pueblo pottery was typically decorated with geometric patterns, animal motifs, and symbols related to the natural world. The creation of pottery was a highly skilled craft, with each piece being handmade, fired in open-air kilns, and painted using natural pigments. Weaving was another important aspect of Pueblo artistic expression. Cotton, introduced through trade with Mesoamerican cultures, was woven into textiles that were used for clothing, blankets, and ceremonial purposes. The patterns woven into these textiles often held cultural significance, representing clan affiliations, spiritual beliefs, or elements of nature. Art in Pueblo culture was closely tied to religious symbolism. Many pieces of pottery, textiles, and carvings were created for use in religious ceremonies, reflecting the deep connection between art and spirituality. Kivas were central to religious and communal life in Pueblo society. These circular, subterranean structures served as ceremonial spaces where religious rituals were conducted, often by clan leaders or spiritual elders. The design of the kiva, with its round shape and underground location, symbolized a connection to the earth and the ancestors. The entrance to the kiva, typically through a ladder descending from the roof, represented a journey from the earthly realm into the spiritual world. Religious rituals performed in kivas were often tied to the Puebloans' relationship with nature, particularly the cycles of the sun, rain, and the changing seasons. These rituals were meant to ensure harmony between the community and the natural world, promoting agricultural fertility and communal well-being. The spiritual practices of the Puebloans also included dances, songs, and offerings to the gods and spirits that they believed inhabited the land. Pueblo society was matrilineal, meaning that lineage and inheritance were traced through the mother's line. This system gave women a significant role in the social and economic organization of the community. Women were often responsible for managing the household, overseeing agricultural production, and passing down family traditions. Property, including homes and agricultural land, was inherited through the female line. Clan systems were another important aspect of Pueblo's social organization. Clans were extended family groups that played a central role in religious ceremonies, governance, and the distribution of resources. Each clan had its own unique responsibilities within the community, contributing to the overall functioning of Pueblo society. The environmental factors that contributed to the Great Migration were complex and multifaceted. Prolonged droughts, starting in the late 1200s, made agriculture increasingly difficult, particularly in areas that relied on dry farming techniques. As water became scarce, crops failed, and the once thriving communities in Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and other large settlements began to decline. Additionally, deforestation and overuse of local resources strained the environment, making it harder for the population to sustain itself. In response to these challenges, the Pueblo people began migrating to more hospitable areas. Many moved to the valleys of the Rio Grande, where access to water was more reliable. Others settled near the Hopi Mesas in present-day Arizona. This migration marked a significant shift in the Puebloan world, as they left behind the grand architectural feats of the Classic period and focused on building smaller, more defensible settlements in their new environments. The Pueblo IV period is defined by the formation of new settlements, the revival of cultural practices, and changes in political organization. As the Puebloans resettled along the Rio Grande and in other areas, they adapted to their new environments while preserving key elements of their culture. They built smaller, compact pueblos, often located in more defensible positions, reflecting the need for security in a time of greater intergroup conflict. Culturally, the Pueblo people experienced a revival of religious practices and communal traditions during this period. Ceremonial life remained central to their society, with kivas continuing to serve as sacred spaces for religious rituals. The construction of large communal plazas also became a hallmark of Pueblo IV settlements, reinforcing the importance of community gatherings and shared spiritual practices. Politically, the Pueblo IV period saw a shift towards smaller, more autonomous communities. While the grand regional centers of the Classic period had centralized power and influence, the new settlements were more decentralized, with each pueblo governing itself. However, the Puebloans maintained connections through trade, intermarriage, and shared religious ceremonies, which helped to unite the different communities. Despite the hardships of migration and environmental challenges, the Pueblo people demonstrated remarkable cultural resilience. They maintained their traditions, adapting them to new landscapes and circumstances. Their architectural innovations continued, with the construction of new types of dwellings suited to their surroundings, such as adobe buildings with thick walls to retain heat in the colder high-altitude environments. Religious practices also persisted, with the Puebloans continuing to honor their ancestors, the natural world, and their deities. The spiritual connection to the land remained central to Pueblo culture, as did their communal way of life. This resilience would serve the Pueblo people well as they faced new challenges in the form of Spanish colonization in the centuries to come. The first contact between the Pueblo people and the Spanish occurred in 1540, when Francisco Vázquez de Coronado led an expedition into the American Southwest in search of the fabled 7 cities of gold. Coronado's arrival introduced the Puebloans to European technology, horses, and, eventually, disease. Although the Spanish did not immediately establish settlements, the initial encounters set the stage for future colonization. In 1598, Juan de Oñate led a Spanish expedition into the region, establishing the first permanent European settlement at San Juan de los Caballeros near the Rio Grande. This marked the beginning of Spanish rule over the Pueblo people, as the colonizers imposed their systems of governance, religion, and labor on the indigenous population. With the arrival of the Spanish came the establishment of Catholic missions aimed at converting the Pueblo people to Christianity. Spanish friars sought to suppress the Puebloans' traditional religious practices, destroying sacred kivas, banning ceremonies, and forcing the Pueblo people to attend Catholic Mass. This religious oppression was compounded by the encomienda system, which forced Puebloans to provide labor and tribute to the Spanish settlers. The Spanish also introduced European crops and livestock, altering the agricultural practices of the Pueblo people. The imposition of foreign religious beliefs, combined with forced labor and other forms of oppression, created widespread resentment among the Pueblo people. Their traditional way of life was under constant threat, and their ability to practice their own religion and maintain their cultural identity was severely restricted. In response to years of Spanish oppression, the Pueblo people organized a coordinated revolt in 1680, led by a Tewa religious leader named Pape. The revolt was a remarkable feat of resistance, as Pueblo communities across a vast region rose up simultaneously to drive out the Spanish. The Pueblo Revolt was the most successful indigenous rebellion in North American history, as the Pueblo people expelled the Spanish from their lands and regained control of their communities. During the revolt, the Puebloans destroyed Catholic churches, killed Spanish settlers, and reasserted their traditional religious practices. For more than a decade, the Pueblo people enjoyed a period of autonomy, free from Spanish control. The revolt was not only a significant victory for the Pueblo people but also a symbol of indigenous resistance against European colonization. After successfully expelling the Spanish in 1680, the Pueblo people experienced a period of autonomy. During this time, they rebuilt their communities, restored their traditional religious practices, and re-established their cultural identity. Kivas were once again used for ceremonies, and the Puebloans resumed their agricultural practices without interference from Spanish settlers. The period of autonomy allowed the Pueblo people to strengthen their social and political structures, reinforcing their resilience in the face of future challenges. Although the Spanish would eventually return, the Pueblo Revolt demonstrated the Puebloans' determination to protect their way of life. In 1692, the Spanish launched a reconquest of the Pueblo region, led by Governor Diego de Vargas. Unlike the initial conquest, the reconquest was marked by a more conciliatory approach. Although the Spanish re-established control over the Pueblos, they allowed for a degree of religious tolerance and autonomy. The Pueblo people were permitted to practice some of their traditional ceremonies, and the encomienda system was scaled back, reducing the burden of forced labor. Despite the return of Spanish rule, the Pueblo people retained many elements of their culture. Their ability to negotiate a more favorable relationship with the Spanish settlers allowed them to preserve their identity while adapting to the realities of colonial rule. Over time, the blending of Pueblo religion and Catholicism led to a unique form of religious syncretism. While the Spanish friars continued to promote Christianity, many Puebloans integrated Catholic elements into their own spiritual practices. Saints and Christian symbols were often combined with indigenous deities and rituals, resulting in a fusion of beliefs that reflected both Pueblo and Spanish traditions. This syncretism is still evident in Pueblo religious practices today. Many Pueblo communities continue to observe Catholic holidays, such as Christmas and Easter, alongside traditional Pueblo ceremonies. The integration of these two belief systems is a testament to the Pueblo people's resilience and ability to adapt while maintaining their cultural heritage. When Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821, the Pueblo communities in the southwest came under Mexican jurisdiction. During this period, the Pueblo people faced new challenges, particularly regarding land ownership. Under Spanish rule, the Pueblo lands were somewhat protected, but Mexican land policies were less favorable. The Mexican government enacted laws that allowed for the redistribution of land, leading to a gradual erosion of Pueblo landholdings as non-Pueblo settlers moved into the region. Culturally, the Pueblos experienced both continuity and change. While Catholicism continued to exert influence, the Pueblos maintained many of their traditional religious practices. However, Mexican rule brought increased pressure to assimilate into a broader Mexican culture, which included the adoption of Spanish language and customs. Despite these pressures, the Pueblo communities retained much of their cultural identity during this period. The conclusion of the Mexican-American War in 1848, marked by the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, resulted in the transfer of large portions of the Southwest, including Pueblo lands, to the United States. This shift introduced new political and legal challenges for the Pueblo people, as they now had to navigate U.S. governance and policies that were often detrimental to indigenous land rights. Under U.S. rule, the Pueblos were initially recognized as distinct communities with rights to their ancestral lands. However, the imposition of American legal systems led to widespread confusion and exploitation. Many Pueblo lands were encroached upon by non-native settlers, and the U.S. government failed to fully protect Pueblo rights as promised in the treaty. One of the most significant struggles the Pueblo people faced under U.S. rule was the preservation of their land. Throughout the 19th century, the Pueblos engaged in numerous legal battles to defend their land from encroachment by settlers and the government. The U.S. legal system often failed to recognize the communal land ownership model practiced by the Pueblos, leading to disputes over land titles and boundaries. Despite these challenges, the Pueblo communities persisted in their efforts to retain their lands and cultural identity. By the late 19th century, several Pueblo communities had successfully defended their land claims through legal means, although many others lost significant portions of their territory. The early 20th century saw a resurgence in Pueblo cultural practices, particularly in the realms of art and craft. Pueblo pottery, weaving, and painting experienced a revival, with artists drawing upon traditional techniques while also incorporating modern influences. The demand for Pueblo arts increased, especially as tourism grew in the American Southwest. Pueblo pottery, in particular, became highly valued for its craftsmanship and connection to ancestral traditions. Religious practices also experienced a revival. While many Pueblo people continued to practice a syncretic blend of Catholicism and traditional religion, efforts were made to restore ancient ceremonies and rituals. Kivas once again became central to spiritual life, and Pueblo religious leaders played a crucial role in maintaining cultural continuity. Throughout the 20th century, the Pueblo people fought to secure their legal rights, particularly in relation to land and water. The Pueblo Lands Act of 1924 was a major milestone, as it addressed some of the long-standing issues related to land claims and recognized Pueblo land ownership. However, battles over water rights and land boundaries continued throughout the century. Pueblo communities also made strides in self-governance, with several tribes gaining greater autonomy through federal recognition. The recognition of Pueblo sovereignty allowed these communities to manage their own affairs, from education and healthcare to land use and economic development. Today, Pueblo nations continue to advocate for their rights and work towards strengthening their sovereignty. Tourism has played a significant role in the economies of many Pueblo communities, especially in the 20th century. As interest in Native American culture grew, many Pueblos opened their communities to visitors, offering tours, art exhibitions, and cultural performances. The sale of Pueblo arts and crafts, particularly pottery and jewelry, has become an important source of income for many Pueblo artists. In addition to tourism, some Pueblo nations have turned to gaming as a means of economic development. The establishment of casinos on Pueblo lands has provided a significant revenue stream, helping to fund community services, infrastructure, and cultural preservation efforts. In the modern era, Pueblo communities have made concerted efforts to preserve their language, traditions, and cultural identity. Many pueblos have established language programs aimed at revitalizing the use of indigenous languages, which had been suppressed for generations. Cultural preservation efforts also include the documentation of oral histories, the protection of sacred sites, and the continuation of traditional ceremonies. Education has become a key tool in cultural preservation, with Pueblo-run schools and educational programs emphasizing the importance of language, history, and cultural practices. These efforts ensure that future generations of Pueblo people will continue to maintain a strong connection to their heritage. One of the most visible legacies of the Pueblo civilization is its architectural influence. The distinctive adobe structures built by the Pueblo people, with their flat roofs and thick walls, have become synonymous with Southwestern architecture. The use of adobe as a building material, along with the design of pueblos, has been incorporated into modern architecture through the Pueblo Revival style, which is popular in cities like Santa Fe and Albuquerque. This architectural legacy reflects the deep connection the Pueblo people have with their environment, as their homes were designed to harmonize with the desert landscape. The continued use of these architectural styles in modern buildings speaks to the enduring influence of Pueblo design. Pueblo civilization has also made significant contributions to the cultural and artistic life of the American Southwest. Pueblo pottery, in particular, is renowned for its beauty and craftsmanship, with styles and techniques passed down through generations of artists. Pueblo art, whether in the form of pottery, weaving, or painting, is highly valued for its connection to ancestral traditions and its role in preserving Pueblo identity. In addition to art, Pueblo music, dance, and religious ceremonies have also had a profound influence on the cultural fabric of the Southwest. Many festivals and celebrations in the region incorporate elements of Pueblo tradition, reflecting the deep-rooted presence of Pueblo culture in the area. In the 21st century, the Pueblo people continue to maintain their cultural heritage and identity, despite the challenges of modern life. Pueblo communities remain vibrant, with a strong sense of communal values, spiritual practices, and connection to the land. Efforts to preserve language, art, and traditions ensure that Pueblo identity remains strong in the face of outside pressures. The resilience of Pueblo civilization is a testament to the strength and adaptability of its people. For thousands of years, the Pueblo people have maintained their cultural traditions, adapting to changing environments, political landscapes, and societal challenges. Today, they continue to celebrate their heritage while looking to the future, ensuring that the legacy of Pueblo civilization will endure for generations to come. The historical journey of the Pueblo civilization, from its ancestral beginnings as the Ancestral Puebloans to its present-day communities, stands as a remarkable testament to human adaptability, resilience, and the power of cultural preservation. Over thousands of years, the Pueblo people have thrived in the harsh desert landscapes of the American Southwest, building complex societies, architectural wonders, and rich cultural traditions. From early maize cultivation to the construction of iconic cliff dwellings, the Pueblo civilization has continuously evolved, reflecting its ability to adapt to environmental, political, and social changes. The significance of the Pueblo people in contemporary Native American history cannot be overstated. Their influence on the broader cultural and artistic landscape of the United States is profound, particularly in the American Southwest, where Pueblo architecture, art, and traditions remain integral. Their role in Native American resistance, notably during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, highlights the Pueblo people's dedication to preserving their autonomy, culture, and way of life. Today, the Pueblo communities continue to be a vital force in Native American society, maintaining their traditions, asserting their sovereignty, and contributing to the preservation of indigenous knowledge and culture. As the Pueblo civilization looks toward the future, there are both challenges and hopes. The ongoing struggle for land rights, water access, and cultural preservation remains critical for Pueblo communities, particularly in the face of modernization and external pressures. Yet, there is also hope. Through efforts to revitalize language, protect sacred traditions, and embrace economic opportunities such as tourism and cultural heritage, the Pueblo people are actively shaping their future while honoring their past. Their resilience offers an enduring lesson in the power of cultural continuity and the unyielding spirit of a people determined to thrive for generations to come.